All right, good afternoon and welcome everybody. My name is Shamas. I'm a sales tech here at Nagios Enterprises. I'd like to welcome you to today's presentation on Nagios Network Analyzer. Today we'll be talking about network flow data and how to monitor it using Network Analyzer, which is our enterprise class network flow data analysis and alerting solution. The presentation will give you a quick walk through the interface and the key features and should last 25 to 30 minutes. And then we'll follow that up with a live Q&A session in case you have any questions. On that note, something quick for you guys, the audio feeds from you will be muted during the session, but that definitely doesn't mean I don't want to hear from you. If you have any questions, go ahead and punch those into the questions section of the GoToWebinar interface. And then at the end of the session, we'll be sure to cover all those, so I'd love to hear from you. Happy to help with any questions you have, but I will be answering those at the end of the session for you. Also, if you have questions beyond what we can cover here today, you can always contact us by email at sales@nagios.com, and we'll do everything we can to answer those for you. And also, if you'd like a custom demo tailored to your specific requirements, you can always contact us again at sales@nagios.com, and we can do a custom demo on Network Analyzer or any of our other solutions or a combination of tools like Nagios XI, Nagios Log Server, Nagios Fusion. So again, feel free to contact us at sales@nagios.com, and we can set up a custom demo for you. And finally, we will be recording today's session so it can be made available to others online in the future. So with that being said, let's jump over to our agenda slide and talk quick about what we're going to talk about here today. So we'll start out with just some basics of network flow data, just to familiarize you with the concept, with the kind of metrics that you're going to be able to get from flow data. And then we'll jump into Network Analyzer and kind of talk about how it works, how the interface works, how to get data in, how to report on it and alert on it. And then we'll finish up by talking about how to get started, things like the free trial, the licensing side of things, the various support options available to you. And as I said, after the session, you should have a really good idea of how it works, the value it can provide to your organization, and how to get started and try it out. So as I said, let's jump over and talk a little bit about what flow data is. So as you know, a tool like Nagios XI, some of you might be familiar with that, is going to provide you with a quick and easy way to configure monitoring of things like bandwidth. So you'll have bandwidth in and out on the interfaces on your network devices. And that's a really useful metric because it'll let you know how much traffic is actually happening. You'll be able to go, you know, I have an awful lot of traffic on this particular interface. That's really useful data and well worth alerting on, but the next logical question would be, why do I have all this traffic? And that's where Network Analyzer and specifically flow data come into play. If you've got a flow-enabled network device, it's going to give you the who, the what, the when, the where of that traffic. So it'll provide you with things like IP origin and destination data for the flows that traverse that particular source. It's going to give you information like origin and destination port to help you understand not just where the traffic came from and where it went to, but also what the context of the traffic was. And so it kind of helps you be a network detective and really dig in and figure out not just what you'd get from a tool like Nagios XI, the very useful information that you have a lot of traffic, but also where it's coming from, where it's going to, and what it's actually being used for. And so as far as how Network Analyzer works and helps you leverage the many useful pieces of information in the flow data, it would strictly be a send from the sources upstream to Network Analyzer. So you'd either have a flow-enabled network device, and we support NetFlow, SFlow, JFlow, IPFix, pretty much any kind of flow protocol. And so you'd configure the network device to send its data upstream to Network Analyzer, which strictly acts as a receiver for that flow data. I'll also mention that if you use a client like fprobe, which is a free client that you can load on a Linux system to help it produce flow data, you can also send the Linux system flow data upstream to Network Analyzer. For Windows systems, there's a paid option known as nprobe that you could leverage. But fprobe's nice. It's a free client that you can load on a Linux system. And then again, you configure the devices to send their data upstream to Network Analyzer, which acts as a sponge to collect all that data and then gives you one centralized place to make use of it, to do reporting and querying and alerting. So Network Analyzer collects everything, and then it provides you with an interface, which we'll jump into shortly, where you can run reports, you can create custom queries to look for specific subsets of information within the flow data. And on the alerting front, you can send an SNMP trap, you can send an email, you can execute a script, and you can also send data upstream to something like Nagios XI. And we'll also talk a little bit in this session about how Network Analyzer can be integrated with a tool like Nagios XI for centralized visibility and reporting, because there are some nice integration points where they work really nicely together. But Network Analyzer can also be used as a fully functional, high-value, standalone flow data analysis and alerting solution. So Now that we've got a little bit of background on flow data, how Network Analyzer works architecturally at a high level, let's jump right into the interface and talk a little bit about what's here. So when you first log in, you've got your home dashboard, and right up top here you can see the various sources sending information in, and we will talk a little bit about about sources shortly. But basically it's going to give you traffic in 5-minute blocks for this particular source, so this is just raw traffic on that source, how much disk space the source is using on the Network Analyzer server, the data lifetime, so how long you're actually holding on to that raw flow data, and you'll notice this is fairly compressed. Typically, Network Analyzer would be used for short-term visibility, so 24 to 72 hours of flow data, and then you wouldn't keep the raw data past that point. Flow data takes up a lot of space. It's fairly resource intensive to report on. And so usually it's a shorter term thing, whereas a tool like Nagios XI would be holding on to its data for 4 years by default. So keep that in mind. Below that, we've got our alert summary. And here's just a couple of basic alerts set up, an SSH check, for example, looking for a certain quantity of traffic on port 22. And you can filter these by the status. We've got a couple criticals here, so you can filter down for those. And then below that, you've got abnormal behavior. And this is a really cool component. It works much like Nagios XI's capacity planning report, which projects future usage based on the historical data you've collected. Only in this case, what Network Analyzer is actually doing is it's taking recent performance on a source and calculating what it should do in the future based on its past performance, and then letting you know if what it actually did in reality deviates from that projection. And so you'd see a red rectangle here if that were the case, and what you could actually do is click on it and then drill down to some top talkers reports or a custom query for that time period to help you better understand where that deviation was, what was unique about that time period for that source. And of course a red rectangle isn't a guaranteed indicator that something terrible has happened, but it is a good indicator that whatever happened here is unique, and it would be worth investigating that block of time to see exactly what was going on. So speaking to sources, we'll start there. In Network Analyzer, you can click Create Source here to create a new one. You give it a unique name, basically a friendly name to help you identify this particular source. And a source is essentially just a unique port that Network Analyzer expects to receive data from a device or multiple devices on. And so a lot of people will set it up so that each individual network device is a unique source, just so it's quick and easy to filter down and get more granularity in things like reports. But you can certainly have multiple network devices feed to Network Analyzer as a source. And if you do that, you do optionally have the ability to input IP addresses here, and that won't have any functional impact, but it creates a reference point for you so that you know which IP addresses this particular source is composed of. So you give it a friendly name, you may want to enter the IP addresses, and then you can also define the unique port. Again, the Network Analyzer will expect to receive flow data on this particular from this particular source on. And then you've got the incoming flow type for pretty much everything, Netflow, JFlow, IPFix. You're going to select Netflow here. If it's SFlow specifically, then you'll want to select SFlow from the dropdown, so keep that in mind. Everything else is Netflow, but SFlow devices would specifically be chosen as SFlow here. And then the raw data lifetime, you can set this however you'd like. So it's completely flexible, just keeping in mind that typically it would be 24 to 72 hours, and keeping data longer is going to take a lot of space and is also going to slow down reporting quite a bit. And so it's kind of a balancing act to determine how long you want to keep the raw data so that things perform the way you want to, and so that you're meeting the retention time frame that you need. And one great thing about the ability to integrate with a tool like Nagios XI is that you can create these query-based alerts in Network Analyzer, send that data upstream to Nagios XI, and then the state history, what the state of that particular check was, is going to be stored for 4 years by default, so you can retain that data a little bit longer. You've also got the ability to disable abnormal behavior checks, and so if you'd like to do that, you certainly can, but most of the time people would leave those active. And then under advanced settings, you can choose a specific directory that flow data from this particular source is going to be stored in. So rather than using the default directory, you can select your own data directory if you'd like to. There's also the concept of source groups. And so, as we said, sources can be an individual network device, it can be multiple network devices, and then you can take those sources and group them as well. And this will come in handy in things like reports and queries and alerts to enable you to quickly filter for specific groups of those sources. So here we've got an all sources option that has our Linux source, our source 1, our source 2, our Windows 7 source. We've got a 1 and 2 that accounts for the first two sources. And so you can kind of organize these however you'd like. So again, you can quickly filter in things like reports. And so before we take a look at the reports and the queries, I also want to mention the concept of views quickly. So we'll jump over to that tab. And a view serves two purposes. First off, it allows you to define a different time frame, a retention time frame, for the raw data, for data that's related to something in particular. So looking at this .41 switch traffic view, for example, if we go to edit this, we'll see that we're retaining that data for 3 days for anything related to this particular IP. Now, the retention time frame on the source itself is actually 24 hours, and so this gives you the ability to keep that data longer for specific subsets. And so you can kind of prioritize and say, for certain types of data, I want to hold on to it longer, but generally I want to keep all the raw data from the source for a shorter amount of time. So that's the first benefit. And then the second benefit is that views can be used in alerts in order to narrow them down very quickly to subsets as well. So views serve a very useful purpose, a couple of very useful purposes. Now, if we go back to sources, and I'll note you can also hit reports and queries right from the top menu bar here, but we'll go to our sources and we'll actually click through on one, and we're brought to a page where you can access a summary page, your reports, your queries, your percentile calculator. And so we'll go through each of these individually just to give you an idea how those work. And so in the summary page, you can see bandwidth by bytes, you can see flows, you can see packets, you can see bytes a second, so just basic graphs of that data, and then this can be exported as a couple of different image types. And you've also got top talkers by destination IP, by source IP, by destination port, by source port. And I'll note if you'd like to create a query to look for a specific piece of the data, you can definitely hit the Queries tab. Otherwise, these are hyperlinks here. So for example, we looked at that SSH alert. If you wanted to see what SSH traffic was like in your network, you could just click on one of these, for instance 22, and see everything related to DST port 22, which is destination port 22. So you'll have a chord diagram to help you visualize the traffic. And underneath that, you're actually going to have table data of the source port, the destination port, the packets, the bytes, the flows. That's another thing the Network Analyzer provides is actual packet counts, which isn't data that would typically be fetched by a standard monitoring tool like Nagios XI, so that's really nice. You'll also notice here in our query that source IP and destination IP actually aren't represented here. So that data is not in these columns. But if we scroll up, I'll show you exactly where that's defined. So you'll see aggregate by towards the top here. And you'll see that by default, because we're clicking through on something related to ports, it's just going to populate DST port and SRC port. But you do have the ability, and if you hover over, you can see this. You can also include SRC IP, source IP, and DST IP, destination IP. And so you can basically just add these, and that will tell it that you also want to aggregate by those fields and see that data in these columns. So you can kind of customize that, keeping in mind that the more of these you aggregate by, the longer it'll take for the report to generate. And you can pick your time frame very easily. We do have a bunch of different queries set up, and I'll show you a few of them here, such as common botnets. We'll go ahead and load that one. And you can see it's a simple syntax, just and or and not operators, parentheses, to group items. And so here we're looking for beacons out to common botnets. So beacons out to a particular IP on a particular port, or another IP on a particular port. And of course, we're glad we don't see any data here, but if you did, that would be an indicator to you that you're beaconing out to a known botnet. You've got undesirable traffic, and you might want to look into that. We've also got another one looking for web traffic. So just a simple query looking for anything related to port 80. We can see the IPs that are related to that, anything that was related to port 80, and get an idea of what web traffic was like in our environment. These can be exported as a PDF, so that's nice. You can actually export them from the system. And in the reports section, reports are a little different. It's more of a top talker situation. So with the queries, as you saw, you're really digging in to look for something very specific and possibly something very complex that accounts for many different things you're looking for altogether. With the reports, it's more of a top talker. So here, for example, top 5 talkers by source IP. And we've got a bunch of other ones saved. It's very easy to create the reports as well. So you'll notice there are some with an asterisk here. Those are reports that are built in by default. So right out of the box, you're going to have those. You can also make custom ones very easily. So if we go to custom report here, we'll say we want to display the top 30 from, say, the last couple of days. So last 2 days, pick your custom time frame there. grouped by source IP, destination IP, source port, or destination port. So maybe we'll want to say we want to group these by source port to see which source ports were responsible for the most traffic. And then you can order by flows, packets, or bytes. So we'll go bytes here, and we will run the report. So it's really easy to do reports on the fly. If you like the report that you created, you can always save this. You can export it as a PDF. And then if you go to your saved reports, again, you can pick any of them that you've saved and quickly access them, like this awesome webinar report here, for example. And so it makes it really easy to report, really easy to visualize things. And also from the reports, as we saw from the initial summary page, you can, again, just click through on any of the fields there to get to a ready-made query looking for that particular type of data. So that's really nice as well. And it actually makes it fairly simple to interact with the flow data that you've collected. You've also got a percentile calculator here. And so if we click on that, this will essentially help you, for example, make sure you're getting what you're supposed to from your ISP. So if we pick a time frame, let's look at a couple of days ago till yesterday. And we'll go megabytes a second. We'll look for the 95th percentile, but you can customize that however you'd like. And we'll calculate. And here you see your data sample size of 5 minutes, number of samples 287, 95th percentile is 57.241 megabytes a second. So it makes it really easy. You can print this, you can export it as a PDF. Now another thing you can do with Network Analyzer, beyond just querying the data and reporting on it and visualizing it, is alerting on it. So we'll jump over to our alerts tab. We see we've got a couple set up here. We'll compose a new check, and we'll give this a friendly name. We'll call this our awesome webinar check. And you pick your source, and notice you can also pick a source group. And so this is another benefit that I talked about briefly about those source groups, is the ability to just say, hey, you know what? I actually want to generate this alert for this group of sources and quickly pick them here. But we'll just stick with source 1. And then the views, here's where those come in handy as well. So with the views, you can say, I want to focus on anything related to this .41, which is actually an HP Pro curve. So once you get those selected, you move on to step 2. And you'll be analyzing for bytes, flows, packets, or bytes a second. So we'll analyze this one for bytes. And then the threshold is simply the number which must be exceeded in order for an alert to be generated. So we'll put in our warning threshold. We'll put in our critical threshold. So this is basically the number of bytes in a particular flow based on the previous criteria that must be exceeded in order for a warning or a critical threshold to be breached and an alert to go out. And then we're the destination, source, destination, or source, port, IP, or network is something in particular. So maybe we could go the destination port is 22 to show you that example of how to set up the SSH check. And then you can also create additional blocks. So we could hit and here and then add an additional qualifier, and you can basically chain together these blocks and create a very complex alert. So that's really nice. But as you can see, it's very quick and easy to generate these. And then if you want to kill one of those, you can basically just click that X. So it makes it very simple to say, you know, I'd like to get an alert if this certain set of circumstances occurs. And then we'll move on to step 3. And here's where you pick how you would like to alert. And so you can email people directly from the system. And so as I said earlier, Network Analyzer can be a very useful flow data collection, analysis, and alerting platform all on its own. Otherwise, you can also integrate with Nagios and send query-based alerts upstream to Nagios XI or Nagios Core. You can also send an SNMP trap or execute a custom script, execute a command in order to integrate potentially with other tools, like a ticketing system or a SIM system. So it's very easy to integrate with other systems as well and pass them data. It just kind of depends on the mechanisms they have to intake data. But a lot of systems, such as a SIM system, can intake traps. And so in this case, you'd be using the Nagios MIB and sending those traps upstream to another tool so it could take further action and collect consolidated data from multiple applications. So there's a lot of different ways to alert. And once you get that all set up, you just finish and save. And now we've got our awesome webinar check here ready to go. And we'll start to get data once that has time to run. Now, on the other side of things, over in Nagios XI, just so you've got a quick idea, because I'm sure some of you may be looking at a few different Nagios solutions, they do actually integrate very nicely. So the first integration point for Network Analyzer and XI is actually the reports. So here we've got a network report, and you can visualize all that same data, including the chord diagrams to help you see what's talking to what. So that works out really nice. you've got the ability to pick between different network analyzer servers as well. And if you're in a large environment, you may well have multiple network analyzer servers, and this gives you the ability to integrate all of them and then see very quickly how which one you'd actually want to focus on. You can also pick the reports that you want to look at. You'll see all the reports that we set up over on the Network Analyzer side are visible here. Pick your sources, your source groups, and then you can also schedule these reports for automatic delivery. That's a nice advantage of XI. That's one of the enterprise features. Download them as a PDF, email them to other people right from the system. So you can also look at your queries. So you've got your network reports, you've got your network queries. You can pick from all of those and see what kind of data you've got right inside of XI. So that's a really nice integration point. And there is also the Network Analyzer Wizard. So we'll do a quick search. Here's your network switch and router wizard, which you'd use to monitor bandwidth. So that's what we talked about initially. And there's the Nagios Network Analyzer wizard. So we'd select our server here. Again, if you have multiples, they can be integrated all together. We'll select our host. So we'll go by source, and we'll pick our source here as source 1. And again, you can select a source group. And then we'll use a view. We'll say, let's use switch traffic. And so you give it a host name that you'd like to associate this check with. You can also input the host name of an existing host if you'd like these checks to be under the umbrella of an existing host that you've got set up in the system. And then same concept, analyze for bytes, flows, packets, enter a threshold. And this is nice, you can actually monitor for abnormal behavior as well. So you can get an alert if abnormal behavior is detected on this particular source. So that's a really nice integration point as well, and gives you a really nice way to interact with Network Analyzer right from XI. But again, back in Network Analyzer, it's perfectly fully functional on its own, has a lot of value in helping you leverage all that flow data. Jumping over to the administrative side of things, in the system dashboard, you can see CPU load, disk usage, memory, swap. You can see all your various sources here and make sure their status is good. In global settings, you pick things like your language. Internationalization is supported, many languages you can run the system in. You can also resolve host names and reports and queries and graphs if you'd like to. The hostname cache time can be defined here. The max mapped relations would apply to your chord diagrams. So this determines basically how many chords you're going to have in your diagram, and past a certain point it can get kind of cluttered. So the default, I believe, is 60 as we have it set here, but you can customize that however you'd like. And then your server time zone. You can check for updates very easily and update right from the interface. Under user management, you've got a couple of different user levels. You've got admin and user. Now keep in mind, in Network Analyzer, everyone who logs into the system will be able to see data from all of the sources. But as an administrator, you'll have access to the administrative section, and you can basically change and delete everything. Sources and source groups and views and queries and reports and alerts, as it says here. You can update NNA configurations. You can update users. As a user, you've still got that visibility, as I said, but you can't see the configuration options. You can only edit your own capabilities, your own user settings. And then whether that user has access to the API, which is what you would use to integrate back over with Nagios XI. There's also LDAP and AD integration, so if you'd like people to authenticate via those mechanisms rather than the built-in local authentication, you can certainly set that up. And then if you try out Network Analyzer, it works out to be a great value and you want to go for it, you can always drop your license key in right here. There's also a system backup section. If you'd like to create a backup of critical system data just in case, that can be set up here very easily. And then also note that if you click your username on the upper right here, you'll have your personal account information, so that's all available right there. So that's a quick walkthrough of the interface and the key features. I wanted to remind everybody, if you have any questions, go ahead and punch those in. I'd be more than happy to help with them. In the meantime, I'll talk real quick about the licensing side of things and the free trial and the various support options available to you. And so we'll jump over to our pricing slide here, and it's actually very simple with Network Analyzer. This is basically for an unlimited source license, so there's no license imposed limitation on the number of sources you can collect data from. Of course, there would be a technical limitation. One server can only handle so much, but very reasonably priced. This does include 1 year of support and maintenance benefits, and we offer a free, fully functional 60-day trial as well. And so I'll jump over to Nagios.com and show you that. Very easy to find. Just go to Nagios.com. Right on the front page, you'll see a quick link to the Network Analyzer download, or you can go to the downloads page to see all the solution options. But we'll just click through here. And so you've got a Microsoft Hyper-V VM, you've got a VMware VM. Both of these run CentOS 6.9. So it's a virtual machine with the operating system, with the application just installed and ready to go. Very quick and easy way to get started. And these are good for production too. Otherwise, you can do a manual install into your RHEL or CentOS Linux system. Just make sure it's a fresh, vanilla, minimal install of the operating system with internet access, and it's very quick and easy to install. And if you're not sure which option is going to work best, just go to Need Help and we'll help explain what the various methods are and how they work. And then this will be fully functional for 60 days, so you can collect as much flow data as you want to, do as many reports and queries and alerts, and really test it out. Now, during the trial, there's a few great places you can go to get help. One would be the support forum, and that's support.nagios.com/forum. So we'll jump over there real quick. You can register a username here on the upper right, and then post in general support in any of the sections for whatever solution you're trying. Here's the Network Analyzer section. You'll see a new topic button up here, and this will get you direct help from the same support techs you'd work with as a licensed client. So you'll notice the guys in green here, these are Nagios support techs. They're happy to help out with whatever you need. And then there's also the knowledge base, and that's also support.nagios.com, and that's /KB. So we'll jump over there too. Here you can find hundreds of technical articles, tutorials, documentation links to help you use any of our solutions. We'll expand products here, and for Network Analyzer, there's 52 different articles, documentation, installation, troubleshooting, so tons of options here to help you understand it, configure it, make use of it. And we also have on our YouTube channel, I'll point that out to you as well, and our YouTube channel is Nagios Video. So youtube.com/Nagios Video. And so this is a really good resource too for all of our solutions. You can find everything from conference presentations from over the past few years to tutorial videos to help you install and use our solutions. So this should be a really good resource for you too. Tons of useful content here. So you've got the knowledge base, the support forum, all of the YouTube videos, and a lot of resources. We really want to make sure that you have a successful proof of concept. And of course, you can always email sales@nagios.com too. We can certainly help with higher level questions and licensing questions. But for deeper technical questions, the forum's definitely going to be the way to go. So that's a quick overview of the licensing and the getting started side of things. Let me take a look, and a quick reminder, if you have any questions, go ahead and punch those in. I'd be happy to help with them. But I see a question about how exactly to integrate Network Analyzer with Nagios XI, and that's a great question. Let's jump actually back to the knowledge base. That's going to be our best resource here. And there's a good documentation there, so we'll just jump over to the knowledge base, and we'll just do a quick search. So we'll just punch in XI Network Analyzer and see what we get. So you can send traps from Network Analyzer to XI. That's one way to integrate. Here's how to integrate the reports. So there's two angles. There's the reports, and then there are the alerts. So this will explain to you how to get those Network Analyzer reports in XI. And then this other article will tell you how to, I believe there is this one, Integrating Network Analyzer with Nagios XI and Nagios Core. This is going to explain to you more from the alerting side. So this one's the reports, this one's the alerts. And between the two of them, that'll cover all the integration points. One thing I'll mention, because it's a common question, is if you are trying to find your API key, which you need to integrate with XI, you might have already caught it over here, but if you click your username on the upper right and go to your profile page, you'll see your API key right there. So yeah, those should be very helpful. And actually, here's a great example of a newer video we've created. One of the other sales techs here, Aaron, has created an actual walkthrough video to explain to you exactly how to get that reporting and how to make use of those Network Analyzer reports in XI, what everything means, how to use them. So the knowledge base will be a really good resource for you there. And so definitely check out that documentation, and then get a hold of us if you have any questions on integrating the two. And that's the nice thing about the free trials. You can use as many solutions as you want, spin up multiple servers, integrate them, really put them to the test and try them out, and make sure that as you proceed, you've really tested it and you feel good about it and it's doing the things you need it to. Our solutions tend to be fairly flexible and be able to cover a lot of bases. So there's a really good chance they're going to do exactly what you need them to, but the 60-day trial is a very good way to test that out and proceed knowing that it's doing exactly what you're looking for. So thank you very much for that question. Really appreciate it. Let's take a look here. And so I do see a second question, and this one is This is one we get a lot. The question is essentially, how many sources can I collect data from with a single network analyzer install? And it's a great question. It's a valid question. The trick here, though, is it's a lot like asking how many hosts and services can I monitor with a single Nagios server? There's so many different unique elements and unique things that could have an impact there that it's really tough to say for a certainty because of all those unique factors and because each environment is different. So I can give you a few examples. We have some people who are collecting flow data from a couple hundred network devices with a single network analyzer install, a powerful server, but a couple of hundred. And we have other people who top off at, I think, around 25 or 30 because these are very powerful network devices. They're sending a ton of flow data. They're facilitating a ton of traffic. So it's tough to say for a certainty, but you can certainly use the free trial to figure that out. So what I would recommend is take advantage of the 60-day trial, start plugging some sources into it, see how it performs, and the VMs are nice for that because you can very easily allocate new resources to them if you need to. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. I can't give you an exact answer, but I can say that some testing will be necessary to determine that for a certainty, and so hopefully you'll have a chance to take advantage of the free 60-day trial. So taking a look, I don't see any other questions, and thank you for that last question as well. I really appreciate you guys jumping in. Hopefully the session was constructive for you. Hopefully this helped you understand how Network Analyzer works and how to get started with it. And as I said, if you have any questions, feel free to email sales@nagios.com. We'd love to hear from you and find out more about your requirements and outline how we could be a help. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. I really appreciate you guys jumping in. Thanks for joining me so much, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.